our land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the unceded ancestral territory of the Silks Okanagan peoples and the Splatseen of the Secwepemc Nation. At this time, we'll be looking to have a motion that the May 13th, 2024 agenda for the regular council meeting be adopted. Do I have a mover, Councillor Wayner, seconder, Councillor Valstar? Were there any questions? Errors or omissions or no? Moving on, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that'll be carried unanimously. And next, I'll be looking for the adoption of the minutes from the regular council meeting, April 22nd, 2024. I have a mover for the adoption of those minutes, Councillor Todd, seconder, Councillor Nietzsche. Were there any questions, errors, or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that too will be carried unanimously. I am happy this evening to have the Armstrong Pride Society. Is it Maxine that's presenting for us tonight? Wonderful. I'll have you come up to the mic, please. And we're really happy to have you here tonight. This comes as a result of some concerns in the community about just what's changing in our community along with our Pride group. And this is the best people to speak to what's happening and what they're doing, and hopefully help us feel better about the situation and the safety of our community. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And then as far as the slides go, just so I know what's happening, will someone click through for me, or do I have, yay, thank you. Hello. So firstly, I'd just like to say thank you for asking us to come and make this presentation. It means a lot to us. I'll get right into it because I know your meetings are long. So first, I would also like to acknowledge that we're here together on the unceded lands of the Splatseen people of the Secwepemc Nation and the people of the Silks Nation. We're grateful for all those before us who took care of this place and would like to consider them while we live our lives and benefit from all that this place has to offer. So just a little bit of our background for everybody. The Pride Society was formed under the initial goal of creating a Pride sidewalk in Armstrong. So we were able to do that thanks to partnership with the city and other folks within our community. In June, we collected 400 signatures to make that happen. So we had lots of community support. That's pretty good for Armstrong and SPAL. We held a concert series in 2021 and 2022 to raise funds for the sidewalk and other Pride events. Since then, we've hosted 2 Pride in the Park events in the park. We've also done some art shows, dances, roller skating, and we hope to do more. We hope to have at least 3 solid events a year. Yeah, and it's moving forward. We have Pride in the Park coming up soon. A little bit more about us. We're a nonprofit society. So what we do is we acknowledge, support, and celebrate and reflect the diversity of our community. So that means everybody. We advocate for human rights and social justice. So we do that by providing information sessions for people upon request. We are trying to get together more than just in-person resources and information. We'd like to, at some point here, get a whole kind of online resource for local supports for 2S LGBTQIA+ people. So working on that. In the meantime, folks can reach out to us anytime. And we have several volunteer members that do kind of community outreach and things like that. That's okay. I wish I could say that I had this all memorized, but I don't. Oh yeah. Amazing. I'm happy to do that if that's okay with you. Okay, we'll make sure this works. So this is, sorry, I apologize. It's a little redundant, but it's expanding on what I said in the last slide, we like to create opportunities for expression and sharing through art, music, and community events that celebrate our diversity and build a more inclusive place to live together. And a big part of what we do is educating individuals and organizations like the city about diversity and inclusion and how to create safe spaces for everybody. So a bit about our logo. It's based on the 11 colors of the Pride Progress flag. The pinwheel shape embodies movement and change. The convergence of colors at the center symbolizes the coming together of community. And the green border represents our home, Armstrong in the Spalmsheen Valley, where we are surrounded by lush green landscapes. So for those that don't know, 2S LGBTQIA+ is an acronym for two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and/or questioning, intersex, and asexual. While the plus symbol reflects the countless affirmative ways in which people choose to self-identify. To acknowledge that two-spirit indigenous people were the first sexual and gender minority people in North America, we've adopted the practice of placing the 2S for two-spirit at the beginning of the LGBTQ. So that's why sometimes you see 2S first and sometimes you see it somewhere else within the acronym. So currently we're hosting a monthly safe space. We have snacks, play games. We just wanted to be able to provide resources of all kinds to folks that were needing them, letting them know that we're here. That happens once a month. So we're also planning events for the community. We've got our big one coming up is Pride in the Park. That happens every year in June. Yeah, as I've said, it's our main mandate just to make sure that everybody in the community feels welcome and safe. And then we like to bridge the gap by providing education to folks. Who partners with us? PB Boulevard Coffee, the Chamber of Commerce, the high school, the middle school, and the school district, the city of Armstrong. Zion United Church has been a big helper. They've been providing a lot of spaces for us for free, which is amazing. Community Futures, Okanagan, Valley First Credit Union, Vantage One, Shuswap Pride, and I can't see what that is on the bottom. TMS, thank you. So they're a print shop in Enderby, and they do a lot of great stuff for us at a discount. So how can you help us? By striving to listen and learn about the experiences of people in your community, which I'd say you're doing a pretty good job of. You've invited us here, you're asking. That's amazing. You can support our society and other organizations that provide resources to our members. So you can do that by like sharing our events, attending them. We always love to see you guys there. Yeah, and just in general by being an accepting member of the community. So feeling okay to ask questions, knowing that it's okay to make mistakes. These are all really, really important ways that you can just help make everybody feel welcome here. And I think that's it. Oh, yeah, you can find us here. Our website is armstrongpride.ca. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We're available through all of those channels, and the Chamber of Commerce and PV Boulevard sell our merch. So you can also support us by buying merch. So thank you, everybody. Oh, should I stand here for questions? Does anybody have any?
Yeah, thanks, Maxine. Did anybody, I want to thank you and the group for what you're doing in our community. We do see you out there, and I've attended many of your events, and I really appreciate the support you're providing to people in our community. Any other comments from any of the councilors?
Thank you guys for everything that you guys do. It's wonderful. I don't know if this is a question for us or you guys, but the repainting of the sidewalk, what do you guys have a plan or idea of what's going on with that?
Yes. So as it is right now, the city has the paint stored for us that we used last time. We are hoping to have a little bit of a PR event where we can have some volunteers come out leading up to Pride. It's on my list to email the city to make sure that that can happen and make sure we can have someone come out and be a part of that. So the idea is that we will maybe the week before Pride in the park, we will have some volunteers come out and repaint the sidewalk. maybe in an evening where it's not so busy and folks can get past. So we'll do that with volunteers, and then we'll hopefully have the media and some members from both the councils that want to come out and just show their support. So that's what we're hoping to do. I will be in contact.
Councillor Todd.
I just want to commend you guys and just thank you for reminding us that everybody's human and we have to take care of each other.
Thank you very much.
Just to note to Councillor Valstar's question and comments about the sidewalk or the crosswalk, that there are investigating some other avenues that we've had some brief discussions on, and I look forward to those materializing in the near future. So I will keep you updated on that.
Excellent. That's wonderful to hear. We also have some ideas, so I hope we can talk about it soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Maxine. All right, next, I believe we have Marcus Schroet from BDO Canada to do presentation on our financial statements.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I hope everyone's just holding on to the edge of their seat because this gets very exciting here. So I'm going to spend just a few brief moments talking, walking through just a few highlights on the audit final communication to Mayor and Council, and a few brief highlights on the financial statements themselves. And so we'll see how this goes here with technology. I'm happy to do some clicking if that helps, but if this is working, then we're going to jump to page 4, if we could, actually, that would be great. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'll just cover a few highlights. I won't go through the entire report. And then I'll do my very best to answer any questions that Mayor and Council may have. So just for context, we established for purposes of conducting the audit on behalf of the city, materiality, which was just a little over $1 million, and then final materiality didn't change from our preliminary assessment at which would have happened earlier this year. And so what that does for context is establishes the extent of testing and procedures that we need to do as your auditors. So in practical terms, we look at transactions, pretty much every transaction over that threshold, and then a sample of transactions, a significant number below that. But we don't look at every transaction because then we would be sort of recreating management's role, and that's not the intent of the audit. We are required to communicate in writing whether or not we are aware of any fraud that affecting the city that came to our attention during the course of the audit. So just for additional clarity, the audit is not conducted with the intent or the design to identify and detect fraud. That would be considered a forensic audit. And we conduct as your auditors what we call a financial reporting audit, but we are required as your auditors to sort of have an eyes wide open approach. And if something came to our attention that looked unusual or out of place, we would bring it to your attention. So we're pleased to report that we didn't note anything to bring to your attention. Okay, so next page, the good news is that we are substantially complete the audit. At this point, we have conducted all of the procedures that we need to get to this day, but in practical terms, the financial statements ultimately are the responsibility of those charged with governance, which is Mayor and Council. And so assuming that Mayor and Council is comfortable in approving the financial statements this evening, we would be in a position to finalize our audit report and provide it as part of the financial statements in practical terms likely tomorrow. Okay, so on the next slide, just a couple of audit findings that were included. This isn't a comprehensive list, but just a couple of areas that we paid particular attention to, and I just want to speak to them very briefly, just so they don't sound ominous, I suppose. So we do look at management override of internal controls, and just for context, this risk is hard-coded into the audit standards. So we do not have the means to sort of work around it or ignore it, and we're required to design procedures, and we're required to report in writing, are the results of that. So this is not specific to the City of Armstrong. This would be part of every audit report that we conduct in Canada. And so we're pleased to report that all audit testing in the area was executed as planned with no issues to report. And finally, we also have another risk, a second one, which is also hard-coded into the Canadian audit standards, the risk of fraud with revenue recognition. So the audit standards, or the accounting standards, with respect to revenue recognition are complex. And so we're required to design procedures and report in writing in that regard as well. And so that's why you see it here. Pleased to conclude that all audit testing in the area was executed as planned. No issues to report. And then on the next slide, we took a couple of comments with respect to internal controls. So we do test a sample of internal controls, again, specific to the financial reporting process. So not operational controls in nature, but controls that would ultimately assist with the creation and the completion, if you will, of the financial statements themselves. And so we're pleased to report that based on the controls we did test during the course of the audit, that there were no control deficiencies noted that we need to bring to your attention. So that's great news. And then on the next slide, we also communicate in writing if there were any unadjusted differences or adjustments noted during the course of the audit. So we're pleased to report there was no unadjusted differences to note during the course of the audit engagement. So that means that any change that was necessary for the financial statements to comply with the accounting standards that the city is expected to follow were made. There was just a couple of adjustments made during the course of the audit, and if anyone would like to see them, I'm sure management will be happy to provide them. Very common. Okay, and last, or the next slide, sorry, has just a bit of a list of other required communications. I call this page sort of the no news, good news type of page, in the sense that if there's nothing to report here, that's a good thing. These are just some areas we do need to communicate to Mayor Council in writing to confirm if there was any specific observations. So the rest of this presentation has some resources, light reading material with respect to audit standards, audit quality, always a very, very exciting. Nothing, those pages aren't specific to the City of Armstrong though. With the exception of, dare I ask, can we skip to Appendix A? I don't know how easy that's going to be with the clicking here, but oh, there we go, perfect. So the first page is all we need if that's possible. And that is really fine print. So I'm just going to read the paragraph that Mayor and Council would like to hear about, I think, and that's the second paragraph under the opinion header. And so the proposed audit report that is on the screen here is what we call an unqualified audit report. And while it has an unusual name, that's the audit report that you would expect and want to see as Mayor and Council. And so that what that confirms for the readers that the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the city at December 31st, 2023, and its financial performance and cash flows for the year then ended. And so that's the audit opinion you would expect and want to see attached to the financial statements themselves. I think that's it with regards to the audit report. So I'm happy to pause and answer any questions, or I can carry on to the financial statement highlights.
Not seeing any questions, so I think we can carry on.
Okay. All right, very good. So with a little luck, I'd love to jump to the statement of financial position on the financial statements, if that's possible, and just cover a few highlights there. If we can't get it on screen, I can speak to them verbally, and with a little luck, oh, there we go. Financial statements. Okay, perfect. So I think it's labeled page 3 at the bottom of the page. So let's see. Oh, perfect. Okay. Okay, so I'll just cover a few financial highlights. So what we see in front of us here is the statement of financial position. And what that summarizes is the financial assets, the financial liabilities, and the non-financial assets. So that's investments in infrastructure, land and buildings, for example, of the city at its year end, which is December 31st, 2023. And for comparative purposes, the same time frame ended December 31st, 2022. And so just a couple of changes that you see here. So the cash position at the end of the year increased by about 3.6 million, and the investments increased by 13.8 million. And I'll sort of highlight why that happened, or what the primary cause of that was. But overall, the assets of the city did increase by about 18.1 million. And a significant part of that shows up in the deferred revenue line, so that you'll see that increased by almost over 15 million, just a little over 15 million. The vast majority of that it was grant funding to the tune of about 14 million that was received for regional wastewater grant. And so for now, that's showing up primarily in the investments line there. So cash that was received, but is earmarked for a future expenditure. And the long-term debt position did increase by about 2 million as well, from 2.6 to 4.6. And so net financial assets is sort of the difference between the financial assets and liabilities, and that increased by 2.4 million compared to the previous year to 6.5. The overall tangible capital assets increased by about 2.4 million, not a huge amount. 3.7 million invested, offset by 1.3 million in depreciation. And so I'll just jump to the next. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So the statement of operations summarizes the revenues and expenses of the city. And on the left-hand side, we've got the budget column for 2023. The middle column is the 2023 actual, and the 2022 column on the right-hand side for comparative purposes. And so the overall revenues of the city increased by about 4.4 million to 13.6. The majority of that shows up in the government transfers line, which increased by about 3.2 million, most of which was the growing communities funding. So it was a little over 2.5 million. And the accounting standards sort of dictate whether, based on the stipulations of the grant, whether it should be deferred revenue. So you saw the wastewater treatment grant was deferred. This one's being recognized as revenue, even though it wasn't spent. And that's maybe just the tragedy of how the accounting standards are written. So they're very specific about whether or not it shows up as revenue or deferred, and regardless of whether or not the money is necessarily spent. So in this case, that growing communities funding is required to be shown as revenue. The overall expenses increased by about 600,000 from 8.2 million to 8.8 million. And so the annual surplus for the year, which is the difference between revenues and expenses, resulted in or was about 4.7 million for 2023 compared to 931,000 in 2022. And I realized in my haste, I totally blew past the little comment at the top of the previous page in this one, which says that they're restated. And just for clarity, there was a new accounting standard that came into effect for 2023 for all levels of government, called the Asset Retirement Obligation Standard. And that was a significant amount of work for management and finance team. Not an easy standard to comply with. And so that restated was not as a result of an error that happened last year, but just the effects of that. That standard requires the prior figures to be restated for the effect of that new standard. And so that's what that's referring to. And so on the statement of operations, something that was new, and I apologize for missing it, the asset retirement obligation is a new liability of just under $1 million that wasn't on the financial statements last year. And that reflects the estimated costs of retirement remediation to assets that have retirement obligations at the end of the year. So I apologize for missing that on the previous page. Okay, I'll do my very best to answer any questions. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some financial highlights. Thank you.
Well, I'm not seeing any, and I was going to defer anything I had over to Councilor Wayner. So I guess if there is nothing further, thank you very much, Marcus. We appreciate your time this evening.
Okay, thank you so much.
Getting through this faster than I thought we were. Next, we'll move on to departmental updates, and I'm going to let Ms. Lowe lead this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this council meeting, we have the May departmental updates for council. We will start with corporate services. Ms. Harding, if you want to come up to the podium. Can you do both? Probably not. You could do it there if you want. If it's easier, just present from there. You just have a couple.
Good evening, council. My apologies for our technical difficulties this evening. Let me start off before I forget the number. Our MailChimp count, we are now at 259 subscribers as of today. So slowly but surely we are building that up. Alrighty. So what we have been doing in these past few weeks is we have been working hard transferring. In the background, we have a new website set up. So it's sort of a new system. It's going to be a new look. So we've been transferring everything over, making sure all the links work and everything is saying what we want it to say. So a little bit longer to work on that to make sure it's all clean, and I will be sure to let you know when we launch the new one out there. And also we have been working with Brad and trying to get this water conservation bylaw up and rolling, doing a little research into what legislatively we can do, research with other municipalities to see what they do. And even though their bylaw says they do it, have they actually done it? And just trying to see what is out there and what options are available to us.
Any questions for Philippa? Okay, thank you. And we know what Janine's been up to, but we'll have an update for finance. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick one for now, and then you'll live up here for an hour or so later. So finance, our big thing we started off today. So after the tax rate bylaw tonight is adopted, we will be printing stuffing property tax notices. Our goal hopefully is to get them out by the end of the week. If not, it will be right after the May long weekend next week. The notice is accompanied by a really good newsletter. So hopefully that reaches all of our residents and taxpayers with all of the up-to-date information. So we can always provide council with a copy as well, or a couple copies if you want. We can see how them in your back pocket as well. That might be helpful, but let us know and we can give you some extra copies.
I really like this trend of the newsletter, of getting physical copies of city business into the ratepayers' hands directly. I really like that. I'd like to see that continue if we can.
For sure. So since I've been here, we have been doing the newsletters, but I think they're getting more and more beautiful and a little more eye-catching from our beautiful communications department, because that definitely was not in my wheelhouse in the future, but I used to do those. So I think they're turning out a lot better now.
Thank you. Community services and emergency program updates. Mr. Smith? Got a lot. Yeah, very busy man.
Whoops. I knew it was balancing there poorly. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry for my introduction. So under community services, it's been quite busy since our last meeting. We were contacted 2 weeks ago by Conservation Services regarding complaints of bears within the neighborhood of Highland Park. Unfortunately, this has been an annual occurrence for that neighborhood. Unfortunately, we have a number of residents that are not understanding the cooperation that's needed. So we have made some adjustments with our schedule for bylaw enforcement. So we have had bylaws coming out in the evenings prior to garbage day. They have noted multiple residents that have been putting their containers out the night before, which is leading to the bears coming out in the evening. But now it has progressed to the point that the bears are now coming out during the day. They're accessing people's pet food that's being left outside. So conservation will be stepping up their enforcement when they can. They will be taking a far more proactive approach to issuing fines than what we have at this point. We're strictly focusing on public education. There were leaflets taken out door to door, and our bylaw officers did do some door knocks and reminders. So we're hoping that we will see some success this year and avoid potentially having to have a bear either relocated or either potentially put down. It is, I understand, frustrating for the residents. to try and manage their garbage and to try and find space to store it. We do have a very good program. There has been questions about wild safe containers and changing our garbage cans over to those. Those types of containers are effective to a certain point, but if a bear wants the food, wants the items, it's gonna just slow it down. So we're in hopes that people will take those approaches and be proactive, find ways to store those food materials, whether it's in a freezer, dispose it directly to the landfill close by, but ultimately be proactive in their efforts to trying to support the initiative to make sure that we don't habituate the wildlife within our community. Last week, our staff, we held a training session for emergency management. It was recognized as being called POST, which stands for Priorities, Problems, Objectives, and Strategies and Tactics. It was focused on our EOC and our objectives of working through problem solving when dealing with an event, but we recognized also that it can be applied to multiple different things when solving problems. We had a phenomenal attendance. We had 21 individuals come out from not only from our organization, but other local governments, Ministry of Transportation, Emergency Services. So we had great representation from throughout the North Okanagan. We did a little bit of a training scenario at the end, tabletop, that I think the staff learned quite a bit through participating in it. And we're in hopes that we continue to work with InnoEmergence. It was a great opportunity to work with that company that we've required or brought in their assistance in the past. And so this was a way of them supporting us. It was well received by ourselves as well as also all the participants. Extreme heat. So last week, there's a double X there, what actually should stand for 11 participants out of 55 community partners that we have came to our site here and received an overview of our playbook that we've put together for our community partners. That was a great opportunity to allow them to ask questions and provide support to them, but also for them to recognize the role that so many of them really want to play in supporting our community. There's been discussions going on over the past year since we first initiated this project. And once again, last week, this just has inspired more individuals from our community to get involved in preparedness, in response. And ultimately, I think they all walked out of here knowing that they can make a difference and that they have those contacts that we ultimately need with our individuals in our community that may not have the resources, may not have know where to get those resources from, but ultimately to support those individuals in the event that we do go through an extreme heat event or any other type of emergency, because a lot of the organizations we have in our community, such as the churches, as well as also the Chamber of Commerce, for example, they have contacts with so many people within our community, and especially our most vulnerable populations and that. So it'll be a great support system for us to work through the next time we should have an event, to be able to rely on our community partners. FireSmart, I actually have an update for you on that. I received an email today after trying to locate a FireSmart or wildfire FireSmart coordinator. So I received feedback actually today. We have to understand, and I do recognize they are extremely busy right now, and their focuses right now are on higher priorities than trying to follow up on Warren's emails. But I did get back in contact with them. It said that I had received, and we'll be able to work through some of the questions that they put forward to us. And hopefully by the end of this week, we should have that wrapped up and finalized and be able to hear back. Hopefully, we'll see how the season goes, but hopefully sooner than later, and that to get that grant put forward. Emergency Preparedness Week was last week. We sent out messaging on personal preparedness through our social media and through our website, and promoted opportunities for community members to be better prepared. Along with that, we also did an alertable notification that was sent out on Friday at 2 p.m. It was originally scheduled for Wednesday, but we put a little bit of a spin on it because the national program put one out on that time. So the Alertable app, we did receive communication back on the event, and it was successful in notifying people. Interestingly enough, Armstrong has one of the higher counts per population. We have over 2,500 people that are signed up for the program, which is great to see. We're right in there with Vernon and some of the other players, so it's great to see that our residents are participating in this program. So 95% of the participants use their mobile app, 27% use SMS messaging, 1.3% receive messages through email. 0.3% is other. I don't know what other forms are, but I do know one of them is by phone or landline, and that's 0.2% of the population has signed up by that means. And that's one of the things that we've been focusing on with the Alertable app, is to get messaging out that you can receive messages through your landline. As I know some people were challenged and didn't quite understand all the information, but we do have that capacity to forward messaging through the Alertable app. And lastly, the snowpack. So I've got some updated numbers. We were sitting at 99% of normal up at Enderby Hunter's Range as of the 1st. As of the 8th, we are down to 90%. So there was about 20 centimeters loss of snow. And that's due directly to the warming trend that we were going in up into this weekend. So that's as of the 8th. And then Silver Star Mountain, we've gone from we were at 86%, we're down to 79%. So they had actually a fairly high rate, but they are at a lower level than Hunter's Range. They lost approximately about 40 centimeters of snow over the past week.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And we have our public work updates, Mr. Ackerman.
Quick update from Public Works. It's been a busy past month since our last update. Lots of stuff going on. Off the top, we continue to watch our flows coming down Fortune Creek. Recent heat over the weekend and warmer temperatures the last little bit has increased our flows, and as a result, we are starting to see our water quality coming down Fortune Creek deteriorating. We are in the process of looking at switching over to our wells until water clarity improves for the water treatment plant. So we can expect to have a short-term water restrictions in place, just as we rely on our wells and to be able to meet the demands of the community. So that will be coming in the next day or two as we do that transition over. Consumption, you can see the numbers here this year compared to last year. We did have water restrictions in place last year for a portion of this, hence you see some of that reduction in monthly consumption. You can see this year we've been on Fortune Creek 100% for the past month, and that will change here, as I mentioned, this week. Street sweeping is completed. Our next scheduled sweeping will take place the week of June 25th, and that will be a wall-to-wall sweep of the community again, as per our updated contract. Line painting is currently underway, and in the last little bit of completion, there's just a few little outstanding items. You will note that 2 intersections in town still have not been completed. We are doing a review on design on those ones, that being Rosedale and Okanagan, as well as PV and Rosedale as well. So those will be painted shortly. Lions Park Playground is installed. The engineered wood fiber was shot in place last week. Crews have been busy in the last couple of days getting sod and irrigation in place and just getting that established here. We anticipate we'll open that facility to the public here by the weekend. If we can get the sod to establish to where it's appropriate to walk on by park users. And we are looking at a grand opening event with the Lions Club on May 25th. The Lions will be having hot dogs and barbecue and community involvement. So we'll get that into the council's calendar as well. It would be great to have some representation up there to acknowledge the work from the Lions Club with their donation and the new addition to the neighborhood and the community. So that's been an exciting project. Staff continues to work getting ready for construction season. We have a couple larger sanitary construction projects. We're scheduled to start in late June, early July. One being the Okanagan sanitary trunk main, and the other one is sanitary line replacement at the wastewater treatment plant that has Category 4, Category 5 defects in it currently. So we're just working on getting all of our permitting in place and everything lined up for those. And we'll have additional communications come out through our social media channels for the public for any conveniences and road closures. City Hall landscape has been awarded. We have a firm out of Kelowna that will undertake the work. We have a kickoff meeting with them tomorrow, and work is scheduled to take place starting the week of May 20th. According to the schedule, they're looking to have the project completed the week of June 17th, and a few deficiency allotments in there. But yeah, we should have that fully functional by the end of June. So that'll be a nice project to get wrapped up. Currently working on requests for proposals for our development cost charge bylaw and subdivision servicing bylaw. A large component of that will be that 15-year capital plan that will incorporate the documents that we're starting to get finalized now for our sanitary modeling, storm modeling, water modeling. Coupled that with our pavement management assessments. We'll put all those documents together and then determine project priorities from there. And that will form part of that DCC bylaw. So we want to get that out and awarded, and to get a firm starting to work on that for us in advance of our 2025 budget. The wastewater treatment plant upgrade study, I did have a chance to touch base with Walker Projects. He is working on his draft. I should have that by the end of the month. Our goal is to bring that report to council, hopefully for the second meeting in June, to present to council for consideration of options moving forward. I did have the opportunity to spend half the day today with an environmental protection officer, and we went through and toured all of our wastewater treatment facilities, similar to the process we went through with Walker Projects, and had a great opportunity to discuss some of our future plans with the environmental protection officer, and revisions to our liquid waste management plan, as well as for them to get eyes on our current system and the work that the guys do out there in delivering that service. So it was a valuable time spent today with Ministry of Environment, and I can answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you very much. Just back to line painting, Rosedale and Okanagan, and Rosedale and PV. So those lines still have yet to be painted. There's two yield signs that I've got no idea how they work. The one coming from PV going onto Rosedale, when you're coming from PV turning right onto Rosedale. I don't understand that yield sign. What does it do?
Takes up space right now. And that's why we are looking at some improvements to those intersections to make them function a little bit better, to where you don't have to have a stop sign and a yield sign. And
full disclosure, I've never seen it before until my wife pointed it out. Now I can't unsee it.
yeah,
And I don't know, yeah, so that's part of, both of those intersections are being reworked a little bit, and this is why we're waiting on the line
that's
painting?
correct. Yeah, we're
Okay.
just waiting on design, and then some improvements there along with the line painting.
Thank you.
Just a couple things, Brad. I can see you guys have been pretty busy. One, there was a lot of comments about our street cleaning and it being late, and then how come everybody else in Western Canada was done first. I wonder if you could just explain some of the facts about, well, first of all, we know why it was late because we made a change, but the better efficiency, and also maybe for those who haven't followed our council meetings, why we actually contract out our street sweeping now.
Yep, definitely can provide some additional comments on that. Yeah, so the street sweeping this year was a little later than residents are used to when we had our previous sweeper. Our previous sweeper was getting long in the tooth. We had to invest significant amount of dollars in repairs to it. the cost of operation for it and the cost to extend the life of that piece of equipment wasn't viable. So we did make that decision to trade that piece of equipment out in favor of another piece of equipment and deliver our sweeping services through a third-party contractor. Some of the main benefits of that off the top are we don't have that capital outlay for that piece of equipment. We can rely on contractors that have multiple machines. And the one nice thing about it is when they come to town, they come with multiple machines and they can get in and sweep wall to wall in the city and then get back out rather than having one machine do right-hand turns through town for weeks. And the other one is it's a more cost-effective delivery model. We've been able to save substantial amount of dollars in our operating budgets by delivering this service through a third-party contractor. Plus, we are seeing a level increase in service because we do get 4 sweepings per year under this contract, and the contractor carries the cost of mechanical breakdowns and those ongoing operating costs. Our contract amount stays fixed, so residents will see an increase in the amount of times the town has swept wall to wall. We do kind of time that for some of the seasonal events that take place, whether it's having large events in town, seasonal leaf drop. From time to time, we have a little bit of wood shavings around town as well. So it's to help deal with that, and then do a big sweep before fall to ensure that that leaf matter is picked up and our storm drains function for winter freeze thaw cycles. So those are kind of the big advantages to delivering the sweeping. Our contract does specify the weeks they are to come to town to sweep. Our spring sweep this year was delayed a little bit because of the RFP process and selecting the applicant for that contract. So that did delay it a little bit. But in the contract, they are to arrive in town to sweep that last week of March. They do one in June, the week of the 25th, I believe it was. And then they come back in August, and then they do one late October. So we do have that consistent schedule and an increase in service.
And with the option, if there is a bad storm or something, we can have them come in for a quickie.
Yes, yeah, we do have that ability to have them come in and do an emergency sweep for those one-off events that we get a cyclone roll through town or whatever.
That's a lot better description of the actual occurrence than what was on various Facebook sites.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to touch base with was the downtown landscape weed pulling and so on. And when you're, I know I've already talked to you about this, but just so the public know.
Yeah, so we are seeking the services of a third-party contractor to help weed some of the beds downtown. They are experiencing a flush of growth right now. Our crews have been pulled in a number of different directions on some projects and doing some infrastructure maintenance. So we haven't had a chance to put a lot of effort into that, but our goal is to team up with a third-party contractor to put a dent in that. We have had a contractor come in and do some glyphosate treatments in areas to help knock that back down to manageable. But that is the emphasis. Once we get a few of these other little projects done, we will focus our limited resources to put a dent in that.
One more really quick one. So we thought maybe the water would be turned on this week so we could do some planting, but will it still go on even though there will be restrictions?
It will still go on. It's just going to be limited use of it. I think it was engaged today. They were doing turn-ons.
Okay.
So, but
So we can start planting some things as long as we stay to the restrictions that everybody else plans, of course.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Brad, if you just could, the sanitary line replacement at the wastewater treatment plant, what's being encompassed down there?
so we do have a section of line that runs along kind of Norvell and the gravel parking lot that has some category 4, category 5 defects. So we are looking at replacing that line. It's not a candidate for cure in place lining, so we will be doing an open excavation on that one. And that is included in the budget for those category 4, category 5 defects. While we do that project, we are also upsizing that one based upon our sanitary modeling information we're having back so that it will be in and upsized to be able to handle future growth capacity as well.
So no impact to traffic or anything in the community?
Yeah, no impact to traffic or anything like that. We'll just have a closure of the overflow parking lot at Norval Arena in the summer months when it's pretty quiet.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Is it going to be wrapped up by the IPE?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. For sure. We'll have minimal impact.
Thank you, Brad. Planning services update, Lori? Yeah, come on up. Let's have the building permit on here. Lori is busy doing other things.
Thank you. So yeah, my report is pretty small. I've just included the building permit report from last month, I believe. Yeah, April 2024. You can see even building permits are down right now. We only had one permit and that was for the pergola at Shepherd's. Otherwise, planning has been focusing on getting the reports into council and moving the big projects forward right now.
And that's it, your worship.
Thank you, Ms. Lowe and staff for your reports. Moving on, I guess we will have Janine coming up to do the completion of the 2023 year end.
I'm bringing my water up because I think I might live up here for a bit. So organized, and I'm going to try to click through for everybody. Okay, so first off tonight is the completion of 2023. So under the charter, we must submit our annual financial statements by May 15th. So we're cutting it close, but we are there. And so we're just going to walk through a couple different things. Now that the 2023 year end is complete, the auditors have presented their findings. Council has the opportunity to review more detailed financial information. So there's actually 4 reports that we're going to review. I noticed that my report said 3. So first are the financial statements that were presented by the auditor tonight. They're presented, the preparation of financial statements is the responsibility of City Council and management. The statements are prepared by staff in accordance with the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards, and our external auditors, which is BDO, have expressed their opinion that the statements are fairly presented in all material respects as at December 31st, 2023. So if we have any specific questions about the statements that the auditor couldn't answer, we're just looking for the recommendation that the City of Armstrong audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2023 be approved as presented.
And then the motion by Councillor Wayner and the seconder, Councillor Valstar. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? This will pass unanimously. Thank you, Janine.
Perfect, thank you. So next is the 2023 variance report. I can just open a new tab. So this report outlines the segments that had both a $10,000 and a 10% variance to budget. Each line item has a brief explanation as to why the variance has occurred, and the variances are presented either as positive or negative numbers based on their impact on the surplus. This is just for council's information. I like to do this at the same time as the statements, just because everything's fresh in my mind, but it's just for council's purview. If you have any questions, or if we can go through it line by line, or if there's any specific questions, we can just go from there.
Not seeing anything. Once again, I'll defer down to the end of the table. Councillor Wayner, you're good? Thank you very much.
Perfect. I like it. Okay, so then next report is this report shows the balances of the unallocated and allocated surpluses for the city of Armstrong at December 31st, 2023. So first we have the prior year surpluses. So the city has four funds that we work in: the general fund, water, sewer, and fire. So these are the surpluses that each fund has generated for 2023 in the transfers in column, which is, yeah, this one here. So these are the surpluses for each of the four funds. It's best practice for council to allocate these accounts, or leaving approximately $100,000 roughly in each account. Allocating the city's surplus is important as it ensures that the funds collected for each of the specific functions goes back into those functions for future use. And then below we have all of our allocated reserves. So this is a list of all of the city's reserve accounts. Building these reserve accounts has been identified by council as a council priority under asset management. And we just wanted to let you know kind of where we're at for the end of the year. If there's any questions on the individual reserves or purposes, I'm more than happy to answer. But there is a recommendation in regards to the prior year surpluses, which I'll scroll up to. If you would like me to read it out loud, I can, or if you can read, yes, okay. That the unallocated surplus at December 31st, 2023 be distributed as follows. For the general fund surplus, we'd like $220,000 directed to the roads and drainage infrastructure reserve, $50,000 to complete the capital project at the Highland Park tot lot. For the water fund surplus, $560,000 to the water infrastructure reserve. The sewer fund surplus, $630,000 to be directed to the sewer infrastructure reserve. And for the fire fund surplus, $96,000 to be directed to the fire protection equipment reserve.
Moved by Councillor Nietzsche, second by Councillor Todd. Were there any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And this too will pass unanimously.
Perfect.
Thank you, Janine.
And the last little report, I just wanted to show council. So as part of the audit, a management letter is produced by the auditors that identify any issues or areas or processes that need improvement for the city. Staff is pleased to be able to present a report that identifies no significant matters for the end of 2023. Again, that's just for your information.
I think that attests to the great work you guys are doing. Thank you. Sorry, I'm moving along to 6.2. Repeal of of bylaw 1700 property tax prepayment plan. Do we require an explanation moving forward, or can I just make the motion? I'd like it to have a motion, the City of Armstrong property tax prepayment plan bylaw 1700 2011 be rescinded effective immediately. And I'll move her. Councillor Todd, thank you. Second, Councillor Wayner. Is there any explanation required of why we're going down this path? Sure. Actually, Janine, would you mind please just give us a quick briefing on that so everybody listening outside of the table can understand why we're doing this?
Yeah, for sure. So the city offers a prepayment plan for property taxes. We've been working on updating the plan, and through that was determined that the program can be an administrative program and it doesn't need a bylaw. So the current bylaw, once the current bylaw is rescinded, we've already put the new application form together. It will be going out in tomorrow's tax notices. There are a few changes that we have made. So one is that the payments will be made 11 months of the year. So they'll be withdrawn from July to May. They used to be withdrawn from August to May. So there'll only be 1 month missed, and that month will be June, and then people will just have to make their annual payment for the 1 month. The other change is that interest on prepaid amounts will no longer be paid. Interest will be paid on any refunds of overpayments as required by the community charter. So the change of the interest not being paid on prepayments saves the city almost $15,000 for 2023. and it's already $10,000 to date in 2024. For communications, the amendments to the plan are outlined in our newsletter that I mentioned earlier, and as well, our website has been updated.
Thank you, Janine. So it really, I mean, 11 prepayments versus 10 nowadays makes it a little easier on the pocketbook too for people that are struggling a little bit. And if there's nothing further, I will call the vote. All those in favor? This will be carried unanimously. Thank you, Janine. And now moving on to 6.3, the cemetery update.
Thank you. So as we know, the city of Armstrong shares ownership of the Armstrong Spall Machine Cemetery with the Township of Spall Machine. But both councils approved different rates and fees for 2024. At the city's January 29th meeting, the council approved the 2024 rates that were recommended by the township staff. The Township of Spall Machine Council did not approve their staff's recommended rates and instead lowered several of the proposed charges. So to move forward, the township is asking the city council accept the revised rates as approved by their council. It is important for council to understand that the rate changes have no impact on the 2024 budget. We did reach out to the township in February and in March for this clarification, but we did not receive this until April 30th. So this is why it's before council at this time. In addition, staff met with the township staff, city staff, Brad and I met with township staff on April 30th to review the Q1 update, which I can bring up on the slide if anybody would like. There are 20 plots available with an average of 11 being purchased every year. So council will likely see the costs associated with an expansion up at the cemetery in 2024 or 2026. We do have a dedicated cemetery reserve, and though the value of the expansion is not yet known, we will be able to use these funds in reserve first. Also, another update is that the current columbariums, or it's columbaria, apparently that's in a plural, continues to have available niches. So the purchase of the new columbarium won't happen until those are full. Council will note in the Q1 update that there is no Armstrong contribution, but that is due to the invoices not being received by the city until the April 30th meeting that we attended. I do have another update that's not in the agenda that I just happened between agenda cutoff and today. So during our April 30th meeting, township staff indicated that they were sending over the city's 2023 surplus amount plus interest. The first issue is that the 2023 surplus is with the 2023 surplus. When trying to reconcile the surplus to what our records showed, I noticed that there was a difference. That the 2022 deficit was paid in 2023. It was included in 2023 on operating contribution in error. I notified the township staff of this in March and then realized at our April 30th meeting that they had not addressed this. I then resent my email along with the emails regarding 2022 from the CFO that was here in my absence during my maternity leave. So I forwarded all those over again after our meeting on the 30th, and I still have not received a response. So when the deposit was received from the township, the wrong surplus was paid to the city. The other issue is interest. The agreement does not contemplate interest and is not something that has ever been done in the past. Though the amount is small, it's only $252 for the year. There's no other surplus distribution for the joint functions, parks and recreation and fire. Interest has never been taken into account. The city did not ask for the interest, and it feels that it may be used in the future as an argument chip for other functions. So staff will be sending back the interest along with the incorrect surplus amount. So back to the memo and the resolution is that the council resolution 2124 that reads that the proposed 2024 Armstrong Spall Machine cemetery rates be approved. We want to rescind that, and that the revised 2024 Armstrong Spall Machine rates be approved.
And I'll be looking for a mover. Councilor Wayner and a seconder. We'll go with Councilor Fowler, since we haven't had much discussion tonight. Questions? I know that last little bit Janine added in was an interesting piece. No questions on that? Very good then. If not, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And this too will be carried unanimously. And again. 6.4. Janine?
Thank you again. This one is a little bit different from our normal day-to-day stuff. So, permissive tax exemptions. This report is directly aligned with Council's strategic priority, organizational resilience and sustainability, strategic action, adopt a new permissive tax exemption policy and bylaw. So the City of Armstrong's permissive tax bylaws, we have two, 1757 and 1756, are set to expire at the end of 2024. And council will need to grant new exemptions for the 2025 taxation year. And we have to have that submitted to BC Assessment by October 31st of this year. So staff have prepared a new policy that provide more details, aligns with other neighboring municipalities' policies, and also removes the application form from the policy for ease of administration. So this has been a learning curve for me as well, because our bylaw is a 10-year bylaw. So it was never, I wasn't here when we did it the first time. So I've been digging into all of the details. So I wanted to just walk through a little bit, hopefully at a high level. So first, the legislation. So there's two different sections of the community charter that are in play here. So there's statutory property tax exemptions that are provided under community charter section 220. And council does not have any authority over these statutory exemptions. Permissive property tax exemptions are provided under community charter section 224. These are for nonprofit or charitable organizations that provide services which council considers directly related to the purposes of our organization. It also provides exemptions to some properties in which the 220's exemptions don't apply. So for example, buildings or lands surrounding places of public worship. Under section 220, the exemption only is the place of public worship and the land on which it sits, but the rest of the folio is taxable under 220. So then it'd be up for council to grant a permissive tax exemption for the rest of the folio. So that's where they kind of overlay there. So though we provide exemptions through section 224, for municipal property taxes, the city is still responsible for the payment of the exempted taxes levied by other governments. So this burden is spread over all taxpayers and it's not invoiced or billed to the exempted properties. So current status, we currently have 26 exempted properties. I created a listing if we want to look at it. This is the 26 that we currently exempt. So we have the organization, their address, the percentage of exemption, and then the 2024 exempted municipal taxes. So right off, you can see that this, the first one here, that 80% of their exemption is under 220, so not in our jurisdiction, but the city has granted the additional 20% exemption on that folio. So there's a couple in there, but there isn't a lot. The rest of them are at 100%. So overall for 2024, the exempted tax is just over $100,000. And also for some of the properties, they'll have multiple assessment classes. So sometimes for some of the properties, only one of the assessment class has been exempted. For example, the Masonic Lodge on Pleasant Valley, they run a business underneath. So that business stays taxable, and then just the upper clubhouse portion, which is under the not-for-profit class, it gets exempted. So our current policy really lacks substance, and the application form doesn't require the landowner to provide detailed information regarding the property, its uses, and really why they should be receiving an exemption. We're proposing to rescind the policy and move forward with a new one. And also during our review of our records, we found another policy referencing permissive tax exemptions. So this one is before council to rescind as well. So the proposed policy, I can pull it up because it's a bit. This is proposed policy 242. The changes are, or clarifications and changes. So first is a phase-in period for new applications. So this is a phase-in period of 3 years, and it will ease the impact on our general taxation roll. And the intention is that it would only apply to new properties outside of the 26 that we are already providing the exemption to. We're shortening the exemption period from 10 years to 5 years. This allows for the exemptions to be reviewed in more detail in case there are changes to council priorities or changes in use to the property as well. There's the inclusion of a provision that council may deny applications based on the type of business being conducted. The previous policy made no mention of denials, but council could still deny an application, but the previous policy just really gave the impression if you asked, you were going to get it. As I mentioned before, we're going to be removing the application form from the policy. This allows for the ease of administration, and staff can revise the application form as we see needed. And there's also an indication, and again, it's just in there for writing for the organizations to think about, is that the indication that the granting of a permissive tax exemption may impact other forms of municipal aid. So that may be a no-fee lease or a future grant and aid. It just gives, again, a council more options. One restriction that the policy does not introduce is the amount of funds that are being exempted. The current policy has no reference to this, and unless council chooses to cap the amount being exempted, staff is recommending that this not be included. Establishing annual limits can create uncertainty for applicants, and council will also have to consider a bylaw every single year. So the next steps is, once the policy has been adopted, staff will start finalizing the application form. This form is really going to put the onus on the applicant to provide council all of the information that they need to determine whether to grant a full, a partial, or no exemption. In the fall, staff will refer the draft bylaw to BC Assessment as they have offered to review our bylaw before it gets adopted. Right now, there's no financial considerations because we're not granting any exemptions, and the communications is that once the policy is adopted, the application form is finalized, we'll post through our e-news and social media accounts that we're accepting applications. And staff will also reach out to the current permissive tax exemption properties to provide them personally with the policy and the application form. So the recommendation is that policy 242 permissive tax exemptions be adopted, and that policy 203 permissive tax exemptions and policy 221 use of permissive tax exemptions be rescinded.
Thank you, Janine.
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Nietzsche, seconder. Councillor Todd, question?
Yeah, just to speak to that, your worship, yeah, thank you, Janine, for staff for updating this policy. It was probably due for a review and updating, so that's nice that it's another checkbox and another thing accomplished. Obviously, it was the phase-in period for the new applications is the really substantive new piece to this policy that I reviewed, but because it's policy, the council has the opportunity to waive that should we decided that there was a a really worthwhile project or something that came forward, and we just said, no, this deserves to have some sort of a tax exemption. We would have the ability and flexibility to waive that if we wanted to. So I have no problem supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Nietzsche. Any further comments? Councillor Fowler.
Just thanks very much to our staff for doing such a great job. Always.
Councillor Nietzsche.
Yeah, thank you, your worship. And I don't think, I think I was the only councillor sitting around the table at the time that permissive tax exemptions were a big issue in the city of Armstrong related to taxation of churches. And so I'm glad that we have this policy in place and we can move forward with this now, so without having all of that conflict.
Is there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? This will be carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Janine. And I guess we're back up to Ms. Cordell for the Kerry second engagement summary and implementation.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. I'm here today with a summary of the engagement outcomes and some recommendations on next steps for. My screen sharing is paused. How do I unpause? Oh, stop share. And then, where is it? Sharing. No, that. My apologies. We'll get there with the technology. Okay. So today, I've got a bit of an in-depth presentation for you to walk through how we got here, what we heard from the community, some discussion of some of the things that we're thinking about, some next steps, and I'll wrap it up with the formal recommendation to council. So just as a refresher, the objectives of this plan was to focus on enhancing safety, to create some inviting public spaces, improve our landscaping, promote active transportation, design wayfinding signage, and integrate the rail trail connections. We went out in the fall of 2023 in a number of different ways to get community input. We had an interactive map on the website. We did workshops with businesses. We did walking workshops, and we had a community survey. At a high level, the outcomes of this are interest in improved traffic flow, bike lanes and pedestrian routes, youth and family-friendly spaces, more seating and gathering, wayfinding signage, cosmetic and functional repairs to the road networks and the public spaces in general, enhanced plantings, and an interest in seeing more public art. So we took this information and we combined it with some of the other stuff that we got. Through that engagement, we had some key themes that were identified. They're in a line with this. This is just more details, talking about green spaces, wider sidewalks, keeping the history, being inviting, outdoor activities. Where's the remote? And then one of the exercises was asking about the desired future state. So vibrant, walkable, small town charm, and enhanced accessibility with safer parking, bike lanes, pedestrian areas, better traffic flow, emphasis on green spaces, improving public amenities, and more community gathering spaces. And I can't read the last one. My apologies. It's in the report. Where's my report? Yeah, it's in the engagement summary report from round one. Is there a way to move this? Oh yeah, addressing traffic and safety concerns. There we go. That's annoying. There we go. Okay, so round two engagement really focused on the open house on April 16th, as well as collecting comments from the websites and direct emails. Safe to say this got the attention of the community. The open house had 130 attendees, approximately 331 post-it notes, and a bunch of, 45 written comment cards. We also received 3 paper letters and more than 40 comments submitted via the website, as well as 70 direct emails into the community. The engagement report summarizes all the feedback and attaches all of the comments that we received from everybody verbatim. So you'll see them typed up, but also verbatim in the report, and it's all included in the council package. I will note that unfortunately, the consultant's engagement software did not receive all of the comments on the website. So We think that about 30 comments through the website were lost. The button, however, we've included them in that 40 comment number, and we've received enough comments to feel confident that they would be in alignment with the other comments we've received. They're still working to see if they can recover it through their IT system, but they haven't had any luck so far. So what did we hear? Overall, clearly a desire for no net loss of parking. A desire to keep parking close and accessible, concern about too much change and keeping things the same. We heard comments about the proposed roundabout and ensuring that it's accessible for big trucks. We heard that bike facilities for locals are important to some people. I did hear a concern that rail trail users won't spend money here, but we're spending money on facilities for them. We also heard that the cost of the project and the study are a concern to the community. There were people worried that they wouldn't be able to parallel park because they've been angle parking. There's a desire for Armstrong not to get too fancy, to maintain our small town feel, focus on fixing up the roads, concerns about impacts to businesses, people asking us to think about upkeep and maintenance if we're making changes in the community, ensuring that we maintain accessibility in the sidewalks. People can still get around with their devices if they need to, or if they need some support. There were a lot of concerns about the loss of a turning lane on Smith Drive causing backups. There was definitely some support for the vision, the plan, the bike connections, and the facilities. Some concerns were raised about people being able to access businesses for deliveries. There were questions about where the rail trail parking is going to be, which is something we haven't discussed with the community or determined the final location on yet. Some people were interested that their kids would be able to ride their bikes around town on a separated bike lane. There were definitely lots of opinions on how many people in the community actually bike or walk. There was a feeling that putting bike lanes on Smith would be dangerous because of the number of driveways they'd have to be crossed. Some concerns about losing parking on Smith Drive. Definitely interest in having a public washroom sooner than later. An interest in sidewalk patios, and some concerns that the process is being driven by a rail trail contingent, and questions about what the future of the community garden and the caboose are. So this doesn't capture every single comment, but I think it's the high level themes of what we heard. Also, just for background information, we've started having bylaw track parking numbers so that we can use that, because one of my recommendations is going to be that we look at a parking strategy. And you can see just in the short snap that, you know, parking ranges from kind of 80% to 40%, but they'll continue to track this over the next while so that we can get a sense of just how much parking is used downtown. So some of the other things that came out of the engagement is it's clear that we need to do more communication. There were some key areas that weren't understood. So some people definitely thought the plan was ready to go to tender, that the plan would happen all at once, that we were going to remove parking on Patterson, which was actually just an area that wasn't included in the plan, so it just wasn't shown at all. That the rail trail was the main reason that we're tackling this, and that the removal of the angle parking and increasing the public space downtown would be detrimental to downtown. And certainly there are plenty of communities that have tackled this before and have seen really positive benefits. Some kind of more local relevant examples would be like around Salmon Arm. Enderby always had parallel parking, but they did remove some parking and expanded their public space. And of course, Nakusp. So we can spend some more time on communication and understanding about these aspects of the plan. So some principles of the design concept based on the engagement first round was looking at changing that parking on PV from angle to parallel to increase the safety, introducing more accessible and short-term parking along the businesses on Pleasant Valley, expanding the sidewalks and increasing the public space around Spirit Square, integrating the rail trail connection into it was along the south side of Pleasant Valley, adding bike parking facilities throughout the city area, reorganizing and reducing parking in the city parking lot beside the Wild Oak to create a new gathering space to facilitate markets and events downtown. So those were some of the things that went into that first concept. Also formalizing the parking on Patterson to increase pedestrian traffic on Okanagan Street and offset some of those parking reductions. Introducing the bike lane and extending the sidewalks along Smith. And they had provided 2 options for the look and feel of the area, including some signage, benches, and entry features, but hadn't spent a lot of time on the look and feel of the thing, additionally updating the landscaping. So, next steps. So I got a few things that we've been asked the consultant to review. So we had them look at the alignment of parking or the alignment of the section on Pleasant Valley Boulevard North. They were able to realign that section to reach basically only a loss of 1 parking stall on the Pleasant Valley North section by Shepherd's. We had the consultant look at the possibility of keeping some of the parallel parking on Pleasant Valley Boulevard between Okanagan and Bridge Street by pushing the bike lane into the right of way a little bit more, bearing in mind there's some grade and there may be a need for CN approvals. So they are able to keep some of that parallel parking. I can show you what that looks like. And then I think the biggest thing is phasing the project in such a way that would allow the most critical infrastructure repairs to happen, some public space expansions, some key bike connections, and make the least changes of parking be the first priority. So I'm going to walk you through what that could look like. I think as well as this plan, so I'm going to move this so I can read, is doing some additional policy work to better address parking in the downtown overall. So looking at a parking study, looking at developing a cash in lieu for businesses or buildings that can't provide their on-site parking, and exploring additional off-site parking options. As well, I'd like us to look into developing a sidewalk cafe policy to set the stage for restaurants, cafes, and even other businesses to expand out into the public realm. One of the things that we're thinking is that we could explore a speed change in the areas that would maintain angle parking in the near term to make it a little bit more safe. And then also move forward with developing the wayfinding and the entry signage and finalizing some of the design look and feel elements. So what would this look like more specifically? This slide is so full, there's nowhere really good to put me. I'll just go off the screen. So, so we've had them split it up into some proposed phasing that I think addresses a lot of the concerns that the community had. So what you'll see in the recommendation is that we focus just on up to phase 4 at the current time. So phase 1 would be Pleasant Valley Boulevard North, which is the section where we've managed to only lose 1 parking spot. Look at Pleasant Valley Road East, which would be the multi-use path connection to the rail trail and wayfinding. And we've kind of tagged it with 2025 to 2028 for the time period that we would tackle that. Of course, this is always subject to funding and supply chain issues and all the things. Phase 2, we would look at putting the Pleasant Valley South multi-use path in only, and that would be a quick build option and not removal of any of the angle parking. So basically use that second lane to put that multi-use path in, and then also look at getting the entry signage either in or developed or funded. Entry signage can be expensive, but I think it's important for us. That would take us 2029 to 2030. Phase 3 would be to do the Patterson parking upgrades. We know we have some background work that we need to do internally to get us ready for that. That will tidy up that section of town. I think we'll add a few extra parking stalls, but it'll also make it look a lot better. And that would be 2030 to 2031. Phase 4 would be downtown park, looking 2031 to 2032. And that could be triggered based on sorting out some other items around parking. And then the other phases my recommendation would be that we, you know, have them, but bring them back to council once we've tried out the other stuff, eased some of these changes in, and then see if we're ready to make them. Some also may be triggered by development. So for example, the roundabout at Smith, that's really going to be triggered by the development of 3800 Pleasant Valley Boulevard. The community garden and the caboose are on a road right of way. I think that they're, you know, the community garden folks are aware that that is a temporary location. So that would really be triggered by development. And then some of the others we would have to just bring back later when we're ready. So just a little more detail. Phase 1, Pleasant Valley North, is of course Shepherd's Block. It would involve widening the sidewalks, moving the parking to parallel, doing a bit of expanded public space, fixing up some of the sidewalks, doing some of the, not boulevards, but the green spaces and the trees and whatnot along the sidewalk. That would have to be designed. We're not in a place where we're ready to go there. So that would be one of my recommendations. The other part of phase 1 is this section here. Phase 2 then would be the multi-use path only on Pleasant Valley Boulevard South. Phase 3 would look like Patterson parking. Phase 4 would bring us over here. Phase 5, I think, is on the other map. Yeah, so phase 5 is on Smith, phase 7. So you can see this staggers them way out, and it's not all linear, so it would move some of them to other parts of town. So Pleasant Valley Boulevard, the next steps would be the design of the public space and the wayfinding. This, I think, checks some boxes because this is obviously one of the sections of the road that needs fixing the most. It's a good section to try out widening and activating the sidewalks. We're able to squeeze in a little bit extra parking here, which I think balances out the parking nicely. So it makes it a good section to try out because we're not really losing any parking. One stall. I think that's a pretty good balance. In there, it would be our first place to try out this short-term and accessible parking on the businesses side. This would be something that would be on a complaint basis, except maybe during the fair times when we have bylaw enforcement on more full-time. Phase 2, the Boulevard MUP, I think putting the multi-use path in without changing the angle parking makes that critical connection through town, gets us set up to connect all the way through the Taylor Van Diest Trail. Would also look at a good timing to bring in that welcome signage. And I think it makes some changes without losing any parking again. As we've already talked about here, cleaning up Patterson Avenue. The other thing that we're thinking about is this placement of the bus stop. May or may not, if it went somewhere else, maybe it doesn't lose as many parking spots. It can create a few more there. There's still some options. This is going to take a bit of work for us in the background, but I think it'll really make this part of town look a lot better. We would have to rebuild this fence, make it look nice. I think it's a win for everyone. And then this is the parking, the parking lot, looking at this additional public space, future public washroom. And this could be triggered with the policy developments where we get additional parking elsewhere. And then phase 5 and beyond, again, it's far enough that we don't need to get to the design. We can look at having additional off-site parking before we bring it. Some of it will be triggered by development. And we can try out some of this stuff and get people used to it, see if it's working, and then see if we want to move it forward. Sorry, I'm totally blanking here. Oh yeah, this is, sorry, this is the section by the post office. And this is just showing you that they were able to redesign it so that we can have the multi-use path and keep some of the parallel parking. We'd be able to do that and could look at keeping the angle parking for now. Again, maybe that's something we look at a speed change for there. And I think, again, it's a pretty good compromise that would make that connection through. So this is, I already talked about this a little bit. Patio policy, truck route, explore speed reduction, and then the parking strategy for downtown. This goes hand in hand with the work we're doing with the official community plan because we're encouraging infill downtown. So my recommendation for today is that we move phase 1 to 4 of the Cary concepts. Oh, that isn't worded properly, of the Cary concepts, not the attached Cary concepts, into the design phase with more detailed design on the boulevard, sidewalks, and site furniture being brought forward for council consideration, and that future phases be brought for consideration after the completion of the first 4 phases. So something like post 2032, unless there's an alternate trigger for implementation. And that staff include in our future work planning the development of a downtown parking strategy, a cash in lieu of parking fee, and a sidewalk patio policy. And then that staff explore the introduction of speed changes, a truck route to reduce large truck traffic through the historic downtown, and to improve the safety of angle parking on Pleasant Valley Boulevard. That was a test of my memory. And that's my presentation today.
All right, that's the motion in front of us. Do we have a mover? Okay. All right. So portion 1 then of that motion, that phase 1 through 4, the Cary concept. We move forward with that. Is there a mover? Sorry, yes, Councillor Fowler? And a seconder.
I'll second it for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Anici. And then we will call discussion.
Want me to start off?
Please do.
Okay. Thank you, Lori, and thanks for the work on the project. And I know that it certainly has been one that's created a lot of interest in the community. And if we ever wanted public engagement, we got it, didn't we? So that's great to see. I want to preface this by saying that I am a strong supporter of downtown revitalization and the work that we're going to be doing down there. And so I really do think that there are some really exciting developments that are coming to our community, one being the rail trail. And although it's not the primary reason why we're doing this, you've listed the reasons why we are doing this. We can't build a world-class trail and not expect to have bike lanes within the community to bring people safely into our community and visit our businesses and see our wonderful community. So I think that that certainly is noted in here, and it also is noted in our active transportation plan. I don't want to come across as a criticism, but I just want to suggest to council that we take the opportunity now to just take a step back and reinsert ourselves from a council perspective into the process. Something that I think that was slightly missed in this process, and that we went from some walkarounds downtown to a concept plan to a public engagement on a concept plan, but we never really had the opportunity to workshop this project as a council. And I would really like to have that opportunity to sit back with council, staff, and the consultant, take a look at what the revised recommendations are and get a chance to talk about it as a group so that you can use us as that sounding board for the community that we should be being used for. And I think it's totally meant to be in the vein of collaboration and consultation, not in terms of criticism. So I want to make sure that I'm very clear on that. But I would just really encourage council to consider that at least as an option. We don't have to make a decision today, in my opinion. I think we can take our time to take a look at what the new concept is, have a chance to chew on it a little bit as a group and discuss it, give the feedback that we heard. Because I mean, we heard feedback written and whatever else, but we also had our own private conversations with many people downtown. And I think those conversations would be good to have as a group and provide that information to staff and to the consultants. So although I'm going to vote against the recommendation now, it's not because I don't support the project. It's because I want to defer to a future date so that we can have a chance to workshop it. So.
Thank you, Councilor Nietzsche. Councilor Bellstar.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lori, for all the hard work and time and energy that you've poured into this. I echo Ryan's or Councilor Nietzsche's statements, saying like, I don't think I can support us going into the design phase of this when I still feel that we need to work a little bit more on a draft. And I think we as council, as representatives of the community, should probably look at it and give a bit more input on it before we go into any sort of design phase.
Councillor Fowler.
Thank you. Thanks, Lori. So I think that putting this into perspective into the length of time it's going to take to get to the end mark, which is in the 30s. I won't be around. Just saying, I'm going out for lunch or something. I think having this Pleasant Valley Boulevard North, I didn't hear complaints about that. The fact that we heard mostly complaints about parking, not about the whole design concept. And Pleasant Valley North to me looks good. -1 parking stall, giving us the opportunity to showcase the plan when it's implemented, let the city have a look at it, see if they like it, blah, blah, blah. It's almost like doing a test section, only it's not in Enderby, it's in Armstrong. So I understand the concerns about consultation, and for me, I think that stems from the fact that we tried to do everything in a day. I know that was OCP, but we had too much going on in that one day when the consultants were here, and then we went from seeing this for the council to see that for the first time, going right into the public seeing it and not even thinking that we had agreed on it. Well, we didn't have a chance to actually sit around and agree on it. As a matter of fact, if I'm recollecting it correctly, we kind of rushed through the last part because people were coming in. Was that Carrie or was that? Yeah. So I understand where you guys are coming from. I would have been in favor of voting to go ahead and start finish solidifying the Pleasant Valley North because we're not losing the parking, because we're going to give what so many people asked for, which the wider sidewalks, more of a gathering place, benches, an opportunity to have functions on that street without tying up too much traffic. I like the design of that. And it's going to take us, what was it, 3 to up to 28 before that would 24 to 28 or something before that was done. I think that would give plenty of time to see that if there were some things that didn't work out the way we had hoped they would work out, that we'd still have a little bit of an opportunity to make some changes in the next one. So I think if this was worded differently and we were looking forward to getting that one section done, I would have voted for that. But hearing the problem with the consultation, I do have to agree with that. I felt that we really didn't get a chance to knuckle down all of our concerns. And but I do want to add that, yeah, we heard a lot about parking. Like, come on, there was more to the downtown revite than parking. And I heard personally from at least 4 people who didn't speak up at the public consultation because everybody that's there worried about parking. But there are people who were patting us on the back for having the forward thought of looking into the future, knowing that the rail trail coming in is a big part of it. No, we don't all ride bikes, but this is a world-class opportunity to bring tourism into our community and also give us healthy opportunities for recreation for ourselves. And so I'm kind of mixed on that, but that's mine. I think it was a little bit different. I would have voted for that North Boulevard. I like it. I'm happy with it.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler. Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, Laura, I want to thank you for all the hard work. I have to echo the comments of Councillor Mitchie and Councillor Bellstar. This incarnation is better than the first incarnation, in my opinion. But I think with a little bit more time, we can get it really right. So I think I'm going to have to say I wouldn't be voting against for this today.
Councillor Drapla.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also agree with Councillor Mitchie. I think we need to insert council back into the process, but I don't want to like diminish the whole process as it's existed to this point. I think it's a complex issue that we're trying to look at with different moving pieces, right? And I really like the fact that we went through an ideation phase in the fall of 2023, right? To imagine what all the possibilities are. And then having the consultants take that. I think if we would have inserted ourselves too early into the process, that it really creates bias into the process. And so I like that we've been kind of coming along with the community in this and seeing what we're seeing and collecting that feedback. But I think this is that opportunity now to push pause, like Councillor Nietzsche said, and kind of solidify all this feedback and insert our thoughts and our kind of what we've heard from the community as well as the official feedback sessions. So I also agree with Councillor Fowler that I think Pleasant Valley North won't be a stretch to get to, right? But I do think that we have to consider this all as one package to start with. I don't think we can just look at PV North in isolation, even as a test section. I think that some of the decisions we might make for other areas will bleed into PV North. So it still has to be considered as a whole package. And so that's, again, why I like inserting ourselves back in for a workshop of some type. But I do see a way that we'll be able to move forward. I don't see this as being like a stall point that we're going to get stuck on for a long time. We just need to kind of have that next step in before we go to design.
Thank you, Councillor Drapla. Councillor Wayner.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to Lori and her team. I thought when I first heard all the feedback from the community and listening to all the ideas everybody had, I kept watching the roads shrink smaller and smaller in my mind, and I thought the team did an amazing job of taking those ideas and putting them into a reality of a drawing that could actually be possible. The challenges that came forward afterwards through feedback, and once we kind of thought about it, made things a little more challenging, and then he came back with ideas to continue moving that forward. I honestly think I echo Councillor Nietzsche's comments that with a little bit of feedback, with that opportunity to process a little bit more, I think with some fine tuning, I think this can move forward. But I just think we need that opportunity. Thank you very much for all that hard work.
Councillor Fowler.
I was just thinking about how much of a delay, without rushing anything, we would be able to work on this with still being able to start some implementation if we come to agreement in 2024. Like, is delaying this until we get a chance to talk about it and sort it out going to impact start of construction in the 2024? Or this is 2024. It was 25, 28. Yeah, 2025.
Through your worship to Councillor Fowler, I think at this time, there's too many unknowns, right? And even the way we're presenting it, we're still kind of guesstimating on timelines. So it would depend on how much time we spend doing this. Yep.
We've been promising that road to be repaired for so long. That's one of the things that I'm well, not anxious about, but really looking forward to getting done.
Councillor Nietzsche.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just to adding on to what Councillor Fowler was discussing there, I think that my intention would be with this resolution would just simply be to defer for 2 months. That gives us into June, July, or July, somewhere in there, whatever the next meeting might be in there, and have the opportunity, if it's possible, and works out from a staff perspective, to have that workshop. I totally echo what your concerns are with respect to PV Boulevard North. We need to get, we're going on design for that. The natural speed bumps that are happening there are getting worse and worse, and we need to get them fixed. And I think that what I'm hearing around the council table is that there certainly is general consensus and somewhat support for that plan. And I would totally echo that as well. I think what the staff have come back with for PV North is a really workable solution. But I completely 100% agree with Councillor Drapla when he says that we need to take a look at the cumulative impacts of all of the curry and how it works together. And so that would be something that we could look at and chew on in terms of the workshop. So yeah. My hope is that we don't delay this too long, but just give us either whatever works out from a staff perspective, 1 month or 2 months.
I just wanted to make a comment to everybody. Thank you, Lori, for the hard work and the resilience to bring this back, facing a lot of criticism, and to all my councillors sitting up here. This is an excellent way how we work together and we're able to achieve the goals when we have the ears of the community. And I'm really proud that we're able to all comment and reflect today in a, I don't want to say negative fashion, but on being able to move this project forward and keeping staff not only in the loop, but promoting the hard work that they've done. And this shows great ability of this council and our staff, and what a wonderful city that we live in. Councillor Fowler.
So I would hate to defeat this. Can we table it? Defer it? What do we do?
Philippa?
What's the word? Table or defer?
So, Your Worship, we can postpone this resolution until a future date. Tabling would be to bring it back later in this meeting. So we absolutely, you do not have to defeat it. Someone can make a motion to postpone until a future date, and then we can go from there.
Your worship, using our training we learned at Silga Convention, tabling motion is only for an emergent issue, not necessarily for this issue. So we should be postponing or deferring to a future date. We learned that. So we're just taking what we learned, right?
Any further comments then? So we will move to postpone this motion. Procedurally, how do I do that, Philippa?
It's basically just like making another motion. So the motion would be to postpone this discussion until such and such a date, or the future committee of the whole meeting to be held in July.
So your worship, then I would ask staff, what would be a reasonable time to postpone to? Would the June meeting may be a little bit too soon to schedule a workshop? Would be postponing to the July meeting be a reasonable? So defer, so we postpone this resolution that's on the table now until the July meeting is what we're suggesting. Would that be a reasonable timeline?
I'm at council's discretion.
Yeah, so instead of delaying the project unnecessarily, why don't we table this until June 24th council meeting and schedule a workshop in between the June 3rd and June 24th meeting for a workshop.
So your worship, then I would make the motion that we postpone the resolution into the June meeting.
June 24th, we'll let that reflect. Councillor Todd, that's seconded. Any further question? I'll call, Councillor Balster.
Thank you. Just a question as someone who's fairly new to local government. Are we going to have another public consultation process after we get another draft?
My understanding, what we'll do is we'll make some recommendations and send it back with Ms. Cordell, and then I believe there'll be some form of public engagement after that, correct?
Through your worship, to Councillor Valstar, currently we had 2 rounds of engagement planned in the process. However, we are, as always, at council's direction. So should we want to do engagement further and once we've got like a more developed design?
Can I just clarify there? So you said, so we have 2 more, or we have already done 2 and we
That's
weren't
correct.
planning another?
That's correct.
Okay. Can we have another? Is that?
I would propose we discuss this at the workshop.
All right.
Any further question? We will call the vote on the resolution to postpone. All those in favor? That will be carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Cordell. And moving forward, 7.1, annual tax rate bylaw 1925-24. I would like to receive a motion that the City of Armstrong annual tax rate bylaw 1925-24 be adopted. It has had 3 readings already. Could I have a mover? Councillor Wayner, seconder, Councillor Valstar. Any further question? All those in favor? This will be carried unanimously. Moving along to correspondence, section 8.1, we did receive the minutes from the Parks and Recreation April 23rd meeting. I don't know if there's any comment required on that, Councilor Nietzsche.
Sorry, Your Worship, unless anybody had any questions.
Not seeing any, we will have that as received. And next, we have a letter from the North Okanagan Community Futures looking for support for the funding and building of a health clinic. It just says the North Okanagan and it's not specific, but given the shortage of physicians, family physicians and care in the Okanagan, I think this is probably something we should support. So I would like to make the motion that staff draft a letter of support for the Community Futures North Okanagan's application to the Ministry of Health for a community health center in the North Okanagan. Moved by Councillor Wayner or seconded by Councillor Wayner, sorry, and Councillor Drapala. I'll let you move it, Mark, and Councillor Drapala to second it. And is there any discussion on that? All those in favor? That too will be carried unanimously. And this time we are going to move to an in-camera session. That council move in camera pursuant to the Community Charter, section 90, subsection 1C, labor relations or other employee relations, and K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are their preliminary stages and that, in the view of the council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. Like the motion to move in camera, moved by Councillor Todd, seconded by Councillor Drapala. And at this point in time, a motion to move to adjournment for the regular meeting. Councillor Nietzsche, seconded Councillor Todd. This meeting was in adjournment.